Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I hope you're all fit and well. It's good to be back. You find me doubly happy today. First of all, yesterday's little procedure went without a hitch. In fact, I slept through the entire thing. I woke to find myself with zero pain and zero discomfort. I realise that we all like to joke about cameras being inserted where they don't actually belong, but guys, if you do get a call offering this kind of treatment, please don't hesitate. It is 100% painless. Slightly embarrassing, but 100% painless. In fact, as I've already written down here, the worst part of it is actually having to walk around the hospital with your rear end hanging out. But I've done that on a night out before, so that is going to be the inspiration for today's, not medical procedures, I promise you. That will be the inspiration for today's question of the day. And we'll get to that shortly. But first of all, I have something that I would like to show you. Just get out of that. Are you ready? This is the big grand reveal. Let me get it away from the light. That right there is a silver play button from YouTube to signify that my son Fred now has over 100,000 subscribers on the Diggers and Dozers YouTube channel. I honestly wish I could claim some responsibility, but he's been running Diggers and Dozers for the past few years, and he has absolutely transformed it from the mess that I'd made of it. That being said, I'm not actually that far behind him. Let me have a look. I'll tell you right up to date. I am the Demolition News YouTube channel is currently at 91,156 subscribers, and we actually picked up 1,000 new subscribers yesterday alone. So hopefully I won't be too far behind him. There is a slight issue with mine though. And it's a bit of a question mark. Because we play a lot of films that are supplied by equipment manufacturers, we regularly run into copyright issues. In fact, my channel is currently demonetized for that very reason. But I'm hoping that the fine folks at YouTube will look the other way when the time comes. It would be fantastic to have a matching pair of silver play buttons on the wall. Unfortunately, the next milestone is the gold play button, which you get at 1 million. I think I'll be long retired before that comes about. Now, without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the reintroduced question of the day, and get this show on the road. Now, I will get things started in a moment because I was babbling on just now. I've missed a load of people that have arrived in the chat. So good morning to Jim Turner. Al Grierson says, all good, sitting well, sitting perfectly. Look, not a problem. Genuinely, I was sedated and they said I might fall asleep. Al, like a light. Didn't know anything was going on. Dan Cullen's in the house as well, as is our friend Irvin. Good morning, everyone, he says. Few comments on Fred's new play button. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Well done. Jeff Binion is in the house. Morning, Jeff. Thank you for joining us, and congrats to Fred from Al, and also from Jim as well, and from Gary Muirhead. Well done, Fred. Well deserved. Yeah, I have to say, he doesn't say much, but he's very, very proud of it, and I'm very, very proud of him. As I say, I started the Diggers and Dozers channel and played at it. He came on board and started to take it seriously, and that's where the 100,000, I think he's about 102,000 now actually, because it took a couple of weeks for the play button to arrive. But all of that aside, let's get on with the proper show. It is Thursday, the 1st of June. The 1st of June. How did that happen? Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Ofsted highlights the CITB's shortcomings in a scathing new report. We're up close and personal with the Komatsu PC18 mini excavator, which we shot while we were over in Samota in Verona. And we're making a whistle-stop trip to Poland in the company of LiuGong. Plus, we're going to take a trip down memory lane with those very fine folks at John Deere. And we're going to get to all of that in just a second. But first, let us peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this day in history. on this day in 1533, Anne Boleyn was crowned Queen of England. That didn't end well. In 1880, the first payphone in the US was installed in New Haven, Connecticut. In 1935, driving tests and license plates became compulsory right here in the UK. In 1958, Charles de Gaulle was elected Premier of France and got an airport named after him. And in 1973, Paul McCartney and Wings released the Bond theme, Live and Let Die. One of the better ones, I would say, even though I'm not a Paul McCartney fan. And in 2017, former President Donald Trump announced that the US was withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement. For any other president, that would have been a major black mark. But for Trump, merely a footnote in a litany of wrongdoing. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me remind you of the question of the day, which I may not have even told you yet. And it looks a little something like this. Yes, if you're happy to share it, what is your most embarrassing moment? Try to keep it clean, people. There might be children watching. Obviously, it's been inspired by the fact that I was required to walk around a hospital yesterday with my rear end on display. Nobody needs to see that before breakfast. Sadly, not even my most embarrassing moment. In fact, thinking about it, you're probably not even in my top 100. Maybe we'll get into that a bit later, but let us know yours in the chat. If you've got any embarrassing moments that you'd like to share, anything you'd like to get off your chest, please, you're among friends. Do your worst. We will come back to that at the end of the show. I'm just going to pop over to the chat very quickly. Nick Drew is saying, congratulations, Fred. Massive achievement. Totally right. Al Grisson says, too many to count. Yeah, that's kind of me as well, I have to say. But I do have one in mind that I may share at the end of the show if you're in the mood for that kind of thing. Now, the Office for Standards in Education, Children's Services and Skills, that's Ofsted to me and you, has taken a long, hard look at the Construction Industry Training Board. And like most of us, it didn't like what it saw. Here's how we reported this yesterday afternoon. The Construction Industry Training Board has come under scrutiny following a scathing report by Ofsted, which deemed the organisation to require improvement. This rating marks a significant decline from its previous outstanding rating received 6 years ago. Ofsted's assessment identified a concerning emphasis on contract compliance over educational quality as the board shifted its focus away from subcontracted apprenticeship provision. The decision to withdraw from subcontracted provision has resulted in a significant decline in the number of learners, plummeting from 9,000 in 2017 to a mere 629. Instead, the CITB has redirected its efforts towards specialised apprenticeships in sectors such as plant operations, ground and formworks, and scaffolding. This strategic change is attributed to a shift in government policy on further education, prompting the board to adapt its business model. In response to the report, the CITB acknowledged the transformation in its operations since 2021, stating CITB now works more widely with employers and providers nationally on the delivery of apprenticeship provision locally. The board also emphasised its commitment to delivering training directly in niche areas that would be economically unfeasible for the broader market to provide. While the CITB declared that it would not accept new apprentices through its 24 subcontractor partners across the country, it assured ongoing support for all apprentices currently engaged in learning. The Ofsted report, based on an inspection conducted in March, highlighted ineffective management of subcontracted provision and expressed concerns regarding the quality of education provided. It criticised the board's leaders for prioritising contract compliance over the development and progress of apprentices, resulting in prolonged completion times for apprenticeships. Furthermore, the report noted that apprentices studying at subcontractors' sites across England struggled to achieve their apprenticeships within the expected timeframe. It also highlighted the lack of coherence between on and off-the-job training, hindering apprentices' incremental skill development. However, the report acknowledged that recent efforts by newly recruited managers had yielded positive results. These actions, including the cessation of subcontractor usage, had already reduced the number of apprentices beyond their planned end dates. While the full impact of these changes is yet to be determined, Ofsted recognised their demonstrable positive influence. In response to the report, the CITB acknowledged the challenges identified during the inspection and pledged to enhance provision. The organisation emphasised that numerous examples of high-quality practice within its apprenticeship programmes had been acknowledged by Ofsted. The CITB expressed its commitment to swiftly expanding this level of quality throughout all its apprenticeships. Last year, it was revealed that the CITB might be required to reimburse up to £10.3 million in government funding for its apprenticeship scheme due to insufficient evidence of meeting funding requirements. Right, I'm not going to dwell on that right now. We can save that for the chat afterwards, but it seems everybody I speak to about the CITB thinks it is no longer fit for purpose, if it ever was. And now we have Ofsted saying that it needs to get its act together. And yet, when the time comes to vote for whether we keep it or bin it and replace it with something else, I'll lay you a £5 each. That the industry will just go, no, crack on, it's absolutely fine. Let us have your comments about the CITB. We'll get to that at the end of the show. But we need one of these while I fire up something else. We're going to head back to Fair Verona now to catch up with our friends at Komatsu. I've actually managed to spell Komatsu wrong on my script. Can you believe that? I'm going to be writing it for 34 years. We're going to take a look at one of the mini marvels they had on display at Samota 2023. Now, you have to bear with me a second because I need to get this one off my computer because the video is enormous. And I need to find it. Where is it? It's this one.
Perfect sample of a mini excavator, which is very appreciated in Italy. Of course, with open cab, so with canopy, with a very good hydraulic system, which is quite similar to the bigger excavator. Very high performance, redesigned work equipment. And this machine is really the mini excavator for the customer who wants more from, let's say, a 2-ton mini excavator. This is a kind of special machine which more, let's say, high-grade hydraulic compared to a standard machine. Usually the rental customer might not be, how to say, able to feel the difference on this machine if it's not used to this kind of, let's say, circuit. But an end user would really like the performance of this machine and the difference compared to more popular machines existing in the market. Also, this is quite popular in Italy. We have still a number of middle-sized companies where the machines belong to the company and they take care and they use probably by themselves. We have here a light combination of trailer and machine, which is possible in Italy as it is in the UK. But frankly speaking, this is more a kind of a curiosity for the country than a real popular application. In Italy, we like to put the machine over the truck. The core of the machine, we can say, is imported from Japan. So the engine, the hydraulic, many hydraulic components, the cab floor, as well the PPC lever, we import from Japan. We, let's say, produce in Italy what is the carpentry, the steel, the canopy structure, and of course the assembly. The Japanese machine and the Italian machine are really comparable. You cannot really distinguish them apart from some little details, but this wants to be a kind of assurance for quality. So if you buy a machine made in Italy or made in Japan, you will find the same quality, the same feeling, so you will have the same machine. If I can take one of the characteristics, for sure the hydraulic, this machine has a real load sensing system, so the engine and the pump will talk together to set the perfect feeling within hydraulic and the engine. Then we have as well redesigned the work equipment. It's very robust, it's very strong. This machine is quite heavy duty on, let's say, even a road application where you need to take out asphalt. And all these things together makes this machine special. Just to tell you something interesting, usually a PC18 owner does not change the machine. He will buy another PC18 after this one without going maybe to the cheaper option that even for us could be the PC16, but usually this does not happen. The customer wants another PC18. It's compact, it has a very good feeling, and it is strong. It will never let you down. It's a very long-lasting machine. And maybe when you don't need it anymore, it has also very good second-hand value. So it's a good investment. You can buy it.
$519 shows. 519 of these shows, probably 800 live shows in total. And I don't know when the mic is off. My apologies to Gary, to Al, to Kerry, to Craig, to Jim, to Mick, to Dan, and to Ken. Oh dear. I've got a button on the top of my mic. Because of the way I was playing that video, I pressed it and there's a big red light comes up on here. But because I was looking at myself on the screen, admiring just how good I looked this morning, I didn't see the red light. My apologies. I was only taking the mickey out of my son while I was gone anyway, so let's not worry about it. Now, as you all know, Plantworks. Plantworks. I'm sure you've all heard of Plantworks. It is now less than 2 weeks away. For me, this will be my third major exhibition this year, so I'm already in show mode. But for those of you that aren't, let me whisk you off to Poland in the company of LiuGong to see if I can get you into the show mood. I'm just doing the maths in my head. I'm sure Luke Harney will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're 12 days now, 12 days and counting. And yes, before anybody else, LiuGong most certainly will be exhibiting at Plantworks. I'm not sure if they'll be bringing the beer with them. Let's hope so. Not for me, obviously, but let's hope so. But if you'd like to know any more about Plantworks, please, I'll post a link in the chat for you to pre-register. But ask Luke Harney, she's in the chat. Till then, one of these.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Now, under normal circumstances, we wouldn't normally feature a tractor on this show, but we're going to make an exception this one time because the machine in question is not just any tractor. This was a tractor that would define the company that made it. This is the John Deere Model D.
Weighing the demands of the farmers from every angle, we have concluded that only a two-cylinder tractor will give the farmer everything he wants.
I was 16 And, you know, all the rest of the guys in the class were, you know, working with cars. And, you know, I was a dumb farmer for having a picture of a tractor.
Here is the new John Deere tractor, which we propose to call Model D.
My name is Gene Myers, and this is my son, Tim. And behind us is a 1925 John Deere D.
The Model D, a name that was soon to be the talk of the country.
My Model D here is a 1948. A friend of mine just suggested I buy it when we were at an auction one day. So I came home with a tractor.
We've worked on this 25D together for the last few years now.
My dad bought a GP in 1976, and that's how this whole collecting got started. This is the 1924 Model D, and it's got the 26-inch flywheel, and that was specific to that year.
It's just an amazing evolution that it went through for over 30 years.
The styling on this tractor is the grill on it, and it's got a full-length hood that covers up the fuel tank, and slightly different fenders than the old tractors to make it more stylish.
This would have been the first year for the steering shaft to have a two-piece design.
This one has the spoke flywheel. That was a kind of a neat thing.
The Model D was the longest running tractor from 1923 to 53, and that's pretty important to the farming or agricultural history.
It was a big commitment when a farmer sold his favorite horses and went to a machine. And, you know, the machine had to be very reliable.
Here at last was dependable, economical tractor power that replaced horses and mules on drawbar jobs of all kinds.
The John Deere Model D was important because it opened up opportunities for tractor power to so many farmers.
It's a simple tractor, they're compact, they had a lot of power, and it gave a small farmer a chance. He didn't have to buy a steam engine or a prairie tractor. They're such a simple tractor.
Out in the field is where John Deere tractors have proved their right to be called the champion for low-cost production.
Yeah, this was probably on an 80-acre farm or, 40 to 80-acre farm, and did a lot of plowing and threshing and spring tillage work. I can't imagine that, how this would have improved farming back then.
It's just pretty neat to have something this old that still runs and operates like it did back in its day. I remember when we was cutting wheat, his dad was riding on the fender with me, and he was just a little guy. Time has really flew by.
All the time he was growing up, we took it around to different shows and just had a hell of a good time with it. It's a lot more than just a tractor.
If it wasn't for the John Deere D, there would be no father-son relationship.
I guess I always wished I was able to grow up farming, and I missed out on a lot of that, so this helps me connect with that, and it's real special getting to work with my dad and grandpa on it.
It's all because of a John Deere D and some of the greatest friends in the world I've ever met over a John Deere D, and just an awesome history to an awesome tractor.
Makes you think, doesn't it? As our friend Mick Norwich just says, how much of today's technologically advanced equipment will survive for 100 years? Answer, 0. I wonder if anybody will have the foresight to actually put into deep storage some of the equipment that we're making today. Some of the, the first hydrogen machine, for example. Will somebody have the good sense to put that into a museum? Now, if you are a lover of old plant, going slightly off piste here, if you are a lover of old plant, you will be deeply envious. While I was over in Czech Republic with the fine folks at Bobcat, I met up with a guy called Joe Keller. Joe Keller's dad, Louis, and his uncle, Cyril, in the 1950s, invented the Keller loader. That Keller loader was basically used for cleaning out turkey sheds. It was 2 wheels at the front, 1 at the back. But that machine would evolve to become the Bobcat skid steer that we know today. And I had about an hour-long chat with Joe Keller, which I've managed to record. I need to put an intro on it just to explain all of that. But that will be going out as an audio podcast in the next 24 to 48 hours, I would guess. So if you do like your plant old, you'll enjoy that one. And just on the same subject, we've also done a video interview with him. That one's much more manageable. We'll probably get that down to about 5 to 10 minutes, I would guess. But if you fancy an hour in the company of a guy, as I say, his father and uncle invented the Keller loader, and he is now the historian. He's literally toured the US to find he literally got the 001, the first model ever made. He managed to track it down and bought it back from the current owner. It's now in a museum. So if that floats your boat, then please stick around, because we'll be doing that later. Now, I'm not going to bother you with a gripe of today. I'm feeling a little bit too upbeat, to be honest, after yesterday. So I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle like you get the rest. We'll have a chat about CITB, about old plant, about tractors and all that kind of stuff. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends and your colleagues. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll see you after this word from our show sponsor for the Craic. That's better. And I promise to keep the microphone on this time. Let's have a look. Sounds a great listen. I love old plant. Yeah. Do you know, I've written down the intro. I won't bore you with it now, but imagine being given an hour with Lord Bamford, for example, and saying, you know, take me back to when you was a kid and tell me about your dad building the world's first backhoe loader. I got that opportunity, not with Lord Bamford, obviously, but with Joe Keller, who is my new best mate. He was an absolute smasher, he really was. So look out for that one. It's coming very soon. Wow, it's amazing, Mark. Great to hear the history of the Bobcat. It really is. And do you know what was most remarkable? And I can't remember if it's actually in the podcast, but I did say this to Joe. You know, he was talking about, he's got like this encyclopedic knowledge of what was built when and how it was modified and so on down the line. And at one point he said, you know, they basically came up with this 3-wheel Keller loader for one customer, a guy called Eddie Valo. And it was basically Eddie Valo had gone from single-tier turkey sheds to 2-story turkey sheds. And they needed something light and maneuverable to clear the turkey pup out of the top floor. Joe's dad and his uncle went away and came up with the Keller loader. So when you look at Bobcat now, with all the innovation, with the OLED screens and the max control, remote control, and the electric machines and all of the things that they're doing, the whole story started in a turkey shed in Minnesota. It really is a fascinating listen. So if you'd like to give that a listen, please tune in. Now, let me go back to the beginning of the chat. You freaked me out this morning, people. 2 of you, in fact, and I'm going to single you out, Gary Muirhead and Craig Williams. They actually commented on the show before the show started. And for one horrible moment, I was fairly sure I was sat here eating my Rice Krispies while you were watching. I had to check that I hadn't pressed the go live button by accident. But good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for freaking me out. Livened me right up this morning, that did. Thank you very much indeed. Ken Hatter is in the house. He has the fluffy clouds, which usually mean rain down in Welsh Wales. Speaking of Welsh Wales, there is Kerry Jones. Morning, Kerry. Thank you for joining us. All the way from luxurious Luxembourg is Al Grierson. Morning, Al, and thank you very much indeed for being here. Mr. Drew is in the house. I've set it aside to give it a read, but Nick has put up something today about the rebuild of a Caterpillar machine, which I'm planning to read at some point later today. Got myself a fairly important Zoom call. It's not a Zoom call, it's a Microsoft Teams call at noon today, but if I can squeeze that in between now and then, I will certainly give that a look. But if you'd like to go and have a look at the Diggerman blog, you know where to find him. Facebook, YouTube, all of those places. I don't suppose that one's on YouTube, but I'm sure it's on Facebook. Go give it a look. because we are talking about old plant today. Let's have a look. Jim Turner's here as well. Yes, I am going to just very quickly reiterate. I did have my colonoscopy yesterday, and what a fuss about nothing that turned out to be, genuinely. And I know Nick has got a slightly different story, which I will tell you in just a second. But literally went in, they checked my name and address and all the things, checked my blood pressure, checked my blood sugar, blah, 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 led into a room. Doctor arranged me on my side, told me where I needed to lay. I had a cannula in my hand. They said, we're going to put the sedation jollop. I'm fairly sure they used a more technical word, but the sedation jollop. The next thing I knew, I was lying flat on my back, being told that it was all over and done with, and everything had gone well. So, if you are a man of a certain age, like me, which means top side of 50, I think, and they do offer you a colonoscopy, trust me, walk in the park. I've hurt myself more cutting my fingernails in the past, so absolute doddle. Go and get it done. Dan Cullen, top of the morning, lads and ladies, and the same to you, Dan. Our friend Irvin is over in LinkedIn land. Good morning to everyone. Good morning to you as well. Yes, thank you very much indeed. Well, I say thank you. There we are. That's the big prize there. I don't know if I'll be able to show it to you without freaking the camera out, but there you are. Presented to Diggers and Dozers for passing 100,000 subscribers. Very smart it is too. Weighs a bit as well. I mean, it's not a solid lump of metal like they used to be, but quite an achievement. I was hoping that I could stick it on the wall there. Weighs rather too much for that, so I'm not entirely sure quite what we're going to do with it, but we'll find a home for it, no doubt. Let's have a look. Wow, that's awesome. Well done. Yeah, I have to say, we've been watching the figures, obviously, to see that he had passed the 100,000. He then got a notification from YouTube to say, you've passed, basically fill in this form with your address details. And within 2 weeks, he had his play button. Awesome stuff, absolutely awesome. Jeff Pinion, our friend Mr. Brock, is in the house. Al Grierson says, congrats, Fred. Fair play, Fred. It's a shame he's not here, actually, but yes, well done, Fred, well deserved. Yeah, I totally agree. As I say, right, I'd started the Diggers and Dozers channel with a guy called Matt Malloy. Morning, Matt, if you're watching. And the original intention, when I met up with Matt, who was ex-BBC, I said that I wanted to do a Top Gear for Diggers. And we worked away at it for a couple of years. And to be perfectly honest, we were ahead of the curve. Video was quite hard. There wasn't much of an audience on YouTube and stuff. And in the end, Matt basically said, look, I'm going to have to go back and get some proper work to pay the bills, because there was just no money being made out of Diggers and Dozers at all. So it lay dormant for about a year, and then Fred came along and said, I'll take care of that. And here we are, a few years later, 100,000 subscribers. What is your most embarrassing moment? Well, one of mine would be putting two Y's on the word your. That's not a good start. I'll tell you what, I'll come back to that one in just a second, because I've got one that I can share. You were in a difficult situation yesterday and gained following. Well done. How is everyone today? All good. And fair play to Fred. Glenn Johnston's in the house. Morning, Glenn. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Nick Drew with the counter argument on the colonoscopy. Lucky for you, falling asleep through the procedure, I remained wide awake watching the action on the screen. I've been given some very nice photographs of that part of me. Not planning to put them on the wall. Doesn't look good at all. The word car crash sort of springs to mind, to be perfectly honest. No, we'll move on. Congratulations to Fred. Yeah, massive achievement. Totally agree. Embarrassing moments. Al Grierson says, too many to mention. Glenn has exactly the same answer. Lou Carney is in the house. Good morning to Lou. And she does tell us a bit later on that it is 12 days. 12 days until... Think about that. 12 days. In 12 days' time, I will probably be somewhere in the east of England showground chatting nonsense to somebody about plant. 12 days. Question of the day. Here's a good one. Sleeping in for work, getting up, rushing around like a madman, only to find it's a Saturday and we don't work for weekends. Marvellous. In our old house, the house doesn't matter, but my eldest son, not Fred, the other one, that's Ollie, for anyone that cares. Ollie was next door to my eldest daughter, Georgia. And one morning, just out of sheer mischief, he got out of bed, banged on her door as loud as he possibly could, and shouted, "Georgia, quick, bus!" Georgia literally got dressed in about a nanosecond and dashed out the front door with him howling with laughter, because that was a Saturday as well. Fell for it, hook, line and sinker. Lou Carney says, "How's your butt?" "My butt's fantastic, Lou. How's yours?" No, it's absolutely fine. Thank you very much indeed for asking. You don't need to answer that, I promise. Good morning, Mark, says Mick Norton. We're going to come back to Mick in a second because we are going to be talking about the CITB. Dan Cullen says, wow, Ofsted involved. It shows you how easily it is to get on to construction. Not giving enough notice or time to give appropriate information for apprenticeships and how to get new people into construction jobs via apprenticeships. We'll come back to that one in a second, I think. Rattling through. Thank you very much indeed for that. Dan shared the show with his friends. CITB versus Ofsted. Is that some kind of demons versus ghouls situation? Nobody I know in education likes Ofsted. No, but who watches The Watchmen, I guess. But the very fact that Ofsted, which comes in for a great deal of criticism itself, can then criticise the CITB. I don't know whether that says a lot about the CITB or says a lot about the Ofsted, but either way, not good. Jim Turner says he's glad he's about to start his plant operator apprenticeship in a few weeks. I've no doubt the CITB could probably do a better job, but I'm sure he'll do fine where he's going to work, as it's a proper crowd that's very machine savvy. I hope that's the case, but should that be the case? Should it be bearing in mind they are the Construction Industry Training Board. And one of my big criticisms, and when it comes to Mick Dalton in just a second, one of my big criticisms of the CITB is the amount of cash that they have, I think the technical term is spunked, the amount of cash that they have wasted writing reports on gender equality and all of which needs to be addressed. But you're the training board. Training, there's that word training, that should be the thing that you should be concentrating on, not outsourcing everything and trying to sell off the crown jewels. Always said made in Japan is the best quality. It's hard to argue with that, although as your man said on the Komatsu stand, it's very, very hard to tell the difference between the Japanese and the Italian build. Here we go. Mick Norton says CITB has raised more than £1.75 billion in levies from the construction industry over the last decade. Yet we are told there is a skills crisis. The questionable spending of the industry quango shows the levy and grant scheme consistently works against the interests of small and medium-sized enterprises. Yes, I agree with every single word of that statement. £1.75 billion, and we have a very smart-looking mission statement from the CITB. We have some fancy reports from the CITB, but we still have a skills shortage. Yes, and the word quango does come into that quite a bit. If the CITB were a properly commercial organisation, heads would have rolled by now, years ago. My apologies for the period without sound, because I'm an idiot. I can only apologise for that. Will there be beer at Plantworks, Lou? There used to be. I can't actually tell you. I don't look. It's not my thing. I don't look, so I don't know. But I can tell you, beer or not, it's 12 days away. Dan Cullen says, I'm eager to get there to Plantworks this year. It'd be great to meet all you fantastic and wonderful friends I met on the show. Time is ticking, guys. Yes, it most certainly is ticking. Did you know, says Mick Norton, that 8 in 10 levy payers arrange training but don't get any CITB grants? How on earth is that the case? What? I realise this is going slightly off to the side here, but that's like the people that basically have to pay a TV licence even though they only watch YouTube from a computer. They've got a TV in the house just in case, but they have to pay for a TV line. Why on earth are you paying into a levy system if you're getting nothing out of it? Makes no sense whatsoever. Jim Turner says, thanks, Dan. It's in the blood. A lot of our family either operate plant or mend plant. Dad and 3 uncles were all operators. 2 cousins are plant fitters. Nowhere to go when something goes wrong around the Nottingham area, I would guess. Some tractor porn. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, as I say, I did think long and hard about showing you that, but, given the fact, obviously John Deere goes back to the 1800s, but the Model D, which actually appeared in 1923. And here's a thought, here's a point, which I was going to mention, but I completely forgot to. Up until 1923, the John Deere tractor had been known as the Waterloo Boy. The Waterloo Boy. There's a reason for that. It's the name of the town in Iowa, Waterloo in Iowa, which was where the tractors were made pre-1923, and they still are. Yeah, the Waterloo Boy. Not quite, doesn't roll off the trunk, the trip off the tongue in quite the same way as the Model D. Model D and the Model T. John Deere and Ford, 2 American greats. Love the John Deere feature on the 1925 Model D. Salt of the earth. Yeah, imagine, as I said, going back to what I was saying about Joe Keller, imagine a world without the John Deere, and that's basically what put them on the map. You're welcome, Jim Turner. I'm same, grew up farming, contracting, and driving, operating, everything plant and farm. Hard to beat the old tractors that shows you heritage counts and continues. One of the saddest things, I think, is, and I to this day, I'll never know what exactly happened. I used to do the PR for Avon Barford back in the early 1990s, just doing the maths in my head, early 1990s, when they were operating out of Grantham up in Lincolnshire. The company was kind of resurgent at the time. It had its fair share of ups and downs, but they just started building dumpers, Barford dumpers, no great surprise. They'd reintroduced one of their compaction machines, and they were selling ADTs as well, and rigid trucks as well. So the company was resurgent, and if you went up there, it was a vast factory, way too much space for what they were actually doing. But they did actually have some old examples of Avon Barford equipment from the 50s, 60s, 70s on the site. And then ultimately the whole thing was shut up, and Lord alone knows what happened to all that equipment. If anybody's got a clue, I'd love to hear from you. Gary Muirhead says, I wonder if that Robson Fops umbrella. Yeah, I don't think they were too worried about Robson Fops back in 1923, but it's a good question nonetheless. I split and put engines back together when we had no lifts or concrete floors on shed floor. Old school. How much of today's technologically advanced equipment will survive for 100 years? Answer 0. And I see your point, and I think also it's worth noting the fact that we tend to iterate and reiterate plant on a much more regular basis. When that Model D was largely unchanged for about 20 years after it was introduced. Obviously, plant today, you'll get the A series today, and you'll get the B series in 18 months, 2 years, maybe 3 years time, and then the C will follow a couple of years after that. I take on board all of that. But if you think about, we've recently seen the first electric machines spawned. We've also seen the first hydrogen machines spawned as well. I do hope that somebody is going to take a moment to actually put a couple into storage so that future generations can say, can you imagine, for example, we used to use diesel, and here's the machine, here is the hydrogen equivalent of the Model D, here is the turning point. Hope somebody has the foresight to do that. Exactly, Mick Norton, too many electrical issues and too much computers involved. Totally agree with that. It depends on how open the systems are. I might be able to emulate the old software on your phone. Not sure what that was about. Yes, as I say, I will get to this history of Bobcat. It's the history of Keller loaders, actually, but I'll get to it. I'll try and get it recorded today if I can. Let's have a look. Where's our Peter this morning? Not seen him yet, but hopefully he'll be along a bit later. Missed it again, says Stephen. He does that a fair bit, actually. Sorry, Mark, for freaking you out. I'm watching you today at home on a 75-inch TV, waiting to pick the wife up from hospital. Well, I hope she's fitting well. That's the most important bit. The 75-inch, I cannot imagine what my head looks like at 75 inches. That's about That's actually real life size. Massive head. Massive head. Question of the day. I wouldn't really say embarrassing to me, but when I used to have a regular cancer checkup at the hospital, I'd have to be examined. I'd mostly see one of my consultant's underlings. One time this young woman said, "Get on the bed and I'll examine you." So I dropped the trousers and got on the bed, as it was testicular cancer I had. So she turned around with a stethoscope to listen to my chest. She looked embarrassed. Yes, as well she might. No, it's a dry show until 4:30 when stands can serve once demos are over. So you can get beer, but only after 4:30. It's always been dry. SED was not. No, SED really was not. Have you considered a weekly feature on an old bit of kit for your show? I'm constantly considering stuff. A lot of it is down to access. We've got. I could do a regular slot on old JCB equipment because they very kindly gave us their video archive a couple of years ago. But yeah, getting a hold of the rest of it. But maybe now we've seen that there is a bit of an appetite for it. Maybe I'll start to introduce a bit more of that. That was about keeping current equipment alive 70 years from now. Thanks, Al. I did wonder what we were talking about there. Job I'm on now, work till finished, then take a break to them drilling the piles for the bridge, says Stephen Guthrie. So I said I was going to share, and I'm going to be honest, I may have shared this before. If anyone starts to recognise the story, tell me to stop, because I do babble on. Not Babylon, babble on. So back around about 1987, I was a young reporter, news reporter on Contract Journal, no longer with us, construction magazine called Contract Journal. And I was told that I was going to Alton Towers. Alton Towers hadn't actually been opened that long at the time, but I was going to Alton Towers to see the opening of a new monorail system. And the monorail system basically was designed to take people from the furthest car park actually into the theme park itself. I can't remember who built it. I think it may have been Balfour Beatty. My apologies if it wasn't. But I was invited to it. But the bit that got my attention was the monorail was going to be opened by none other than William Shatner, Captain James T. Kirk himself. I'll have a bit of that, I thought. So I schlepped off up to Alton Towers in Staffordshire. Arrived with the massed hordes of the press, and I was given a lanyard with a big red press badge to sport around my neck. We went on the monorail. It was all fully automatic, but William Shatner, being William Shatner, basically drove it, and he drove it in character as Captain James T. Kirk, as you would expect. He was fantastic value, very, very funny indeed. Anyway, we did the tour, we went out to the car park, we came back again, and so on down the line. Got off the monorail, and there was a train. There was a train waiting for us. So I've hopped aboard the train, and we were basically weaved off up into the hills above Alton Towers to a restaurant. I thought, well, I've been driving most of the morning, pop off to the loo, wash my hands, like my mum told me to do before lunch. So I went up, but I hung my jacket on the back of a chair. Jacket on the back of a chair, went and washed my hands. When I came back, everybody's arrived, everyone's sitting down. And I found myself sat between the Lady Mayor of Uttoxeter and the police chief of Staffordshire Constabulary. Lots of dignitaries. And while I was sat there eating my lunch, I noticed that I was still wearing a red badge and everybody else was wearing a gold one. I thought nothing of it. I did look around a bit, and I was quite surprised to find that I was the only red badge wearing person in the room. But hey ho, we had a fine old time. Me and the Lady Mayor got on like house on fire. Fantastic. Really good morning. Had a good chat with Bill Shatner. Bill, he's a mate of mine now. I call him Bill. We had a good old chat and so on down the line. So after a couple of hours, we jumped back on the train, weaved our way back to the monorail, where I found everybody else that was wearing red badges. They'd been sent off to a cafeteria for a lunch of dog-eared sandwiches and dried up sausage rolls, while I'd been hobnobbing with the dignitaries and Captain James Tiberius Kirk. I'm sharing this as an embarrassing moment. I'm actually quite proud of it. I'm not embarrassed by that at all. But there you are. Just thought I'd share that. What does Mick Norton say? The only way a modern equipment would survive 100 years will be to hermetically seal the same item. Prospect of an electric excavator working continuously for the next 100 years is nothing but a pipe dream. My apologies. Now, our friend Wolf Welder is in the house all the way from the US of A. Good morning to you. Yeah, very good early morning to you, I would guess. Gary Muirhead, maybe you could show some vintage plant on the Friday lunchtime show if there's no new machinery being released this week. Maybe I could do that. Kind of defeats the object of construction equipment news. But hey, it's my show, my rules, I can do what I like. What I will tell you is we do have something quite exciting from Volvo on tomorrow afternoon show. And thank you for reminding me, Gary. There will be a show tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. The Construction Equipment News Show. So wherever you're watching this, you can watch it here. What inspired you to start the Breakfast show? Desperation. Everybody else, we are almost at the hour mark. Everybody else has heard this story. So if you do want to duck out, I fully understand, and I wouldn't blame you one moment. Basically, I came back from ConExpo 2020. At that time, I was a magazine journalist. I was running demolitionnews.com, but I had the Demolition magazine. We had the Diggers and Dozers magazine. But I came back, obviously, at the height of COVID. My advertising department had all departed. Our printers had gone into a lockdown that I was expected to last for 2 weeks, but actually lasted for about 9 months. And I was sat here basically with all of the stuff that I'd gathered at ConExpo. I had an audience, but I had no way of reaching them. But by sheer fluke, the week before I'd gone to ConExpo in Las Vegas, I'd been a guest on a live stream. And I'd remarked at the time just how straightforward it was. So when I got back and I was sat here thinking, how am I going to get this news out to the wider world? I called the guy who had me as a guest on his show and said, how does that work? And he said, well, you use this software and it's free. So I started. Be forever grateful to my mate Peter Haddock, who was on my first ever live stream show, because I needed a guest because I didn't know how else to do it. It looked awful. It sounded even worse. It was terrible. He was great, obviously, because Peter always is, but the show was absolutely terrible. And I was expected to speak to myself, and I spoke to about 20 people, and 20 became 50, became 100, and so it went on. And as we've gone along, we've just gradually honed and honed and honed. Can you still purchase a Diggers and Dozers magazine? No. Not only did we shut the magazine, we even shut down the website because, cut a long story short, there was a falling out. My erstwhile advertising partners decided while they were in lockdown, while I was beavering away in the background, they decided it'd be a good idea to launch a rival publication. So I basically shut up shop and said, okay, well, I'm going to concentrate on this video thing. And that's what we've been doing ever since. In absolute truth, one of the things that I've been kicking around in the background is some way of going back to what Diggers and Dozers used to do, but to do it in a different way. I've got the wherewithal, I've got the system set, I just haven't launched it. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't want to launch it this side of Plantworks. Because I came back from ConExpo 2020 armed with so much information, and I needed somewhere to put it. Well, I'm going to have exactly the same situation when I come back from Plantworks. So I'm beavering away in the background. One of the many balls I'm trying to keep in the air, and I am beavering away in the background, trying to prepare something that will be the next evolution of Diggers and Dozers, which will be a subscription-only thing, free. Although we will put a few bits and pieces behind a paid firewall, but we will be doing that free of charge. But it'll be email only. We're not going to have a website. Well, we sort of are, but it's going to be email driven. So if you are subscribed to that, you will get an email either once a day or 3 times a week or whatever it might be with the latest news, and you can then go and help yourself to all of that. That's the plan anyway. So no, you can't buy it. And the saddest thing of all, I've still got, I think I've probably got somewhere in the archives, I've probably got every issue of Demolition magazine that we ever produced. I don't think I've got a single issue of Diggers and Dozers at all. Didn't feel the need at the time because they still exist electronically somewhere, but didn't feel the need. And then lo and behold, when it's all gone, you think, wish I'd hung on to a few of those. But such is life. Such is life. To be perfectly honest, just to round out the story, if somebody came along right now and said, we'd like you to start another magazine, I'd turn them down because A, this is much more fun. It's almost as lucrative these days, not quite, but almost. And to be honest, I just prefer doing this. You know, I'd much rather talk to people that talk back rather than just firing out a magazine and hoping for the best. And I've got to be honest, I do rather despair of what has become of construction industry journalism these days. There are far too many people out there that believe that rehashing a press release constitutes journalism. It doesn't. You need context, and you need a level of experience and expertise. Read the Digger Man blog when Nick Drew goes to see a piece of equipment. He's not talking about it from a distant planet that he's never actually set foot on. He's doing it from experience. You know, he knows what a machine is supposed to do because he's lived it and breathed it. I've never been an operator, but I've been writing about this stuff for nearly 34 years now. You know, I've lived it and I've breathed it. And it's not just newcomers, but you know, some of the magazines now are just literally sat there turning out rehashed press releases. What value is that? What possible value is that? Craig Williams has just given me a thumbs up. I can only assume he's agreeing with my point on journalism. See, I don't know whether this is what you were after, Craig, but I'm going to do it nonetheless. Craig Williams is at CSW Groundworks. He's got a YouTube channel. Not the biggest in the world. It's not. Sorry, I'm going to do it. It's not as big as that. It's not got 100,000 subscribers on it. Go and check it out. Because like our friend Ollie Guns, Craig Williams talks about plant like somebody that knows about plant. Trust me, go and check it out. Craig, if you've got it to hand, put the link to your YouTube channel in the chat, would you? Let people go and have a look. Gary Muirhead, haven't seen much activity happening on Patreon. Are you still using it? I am still using it, Gary, but I am... And I've been very, very bad, if I'm honest. I had higher hopes for Patreon, both from my point of view and from the patrons' point of view. It hasn't achieved quite what I would like it to have done. So my plan ultimately is to transition over from there into something else. And what it's going to transition to will actually be free. There will be a paid bit that if anybody wants to help support the channel, they'll be able to do that. But I got to the point where I was just thinking that I'm producing special stuff for Patreon, and there's not enough people that are getting to see it to make it worthwhile doing it. So my plan at some point in the not too distant future, probably after Plantworks, I will probably pull the plug on that, and I'll tell you where to find the new stuff. That's the plan. The talking. Not sure what that means, but okay. How many years have you been into the demolition kind of stuff? I've been writing about plant or construction equipment, as you call it over in the States, writing about construction equipment since 1988. And probably 8 months after I started writing about equipment, I was sent to a demolition site to write about it was a demolition attachment actually, and just fell in love is probably a bit strong, but it felt like a homecoming. It was one of those, just went there and thought, these are my people, and I've never looked back since. So yeah, I've been doing it for 33, nearly 34 years, I think. Might even be 35 years. I'll get the calculator out, but doing it a long time. Which is weird because I am only 26. Quite clearly I'm not. Craig Williams says thank you. All right, people, that is an hour. It is a whole hour I've been babbling on. I do have a very important Microsoft Teams call in not so long. Craig Williams, please let me have the address of your YouTube channel, or maybe we'll feature, maybe not one of your whole videos, but maybe we'll feature a bit of one of your videos in a future show, because I do like what you're doing. Very admirable, because you're doing it out of love and passion for the subject. So be more than happy to share that on the show. Everybody else, go and have a fantastic day. I'm back not once but twice tomorrow. Obviously be here at 10 o'clock as per usual, but I will also be back at 1 p.m. with the fabulous Construction Equipment News Show. Peter is a fantastic influencer. He's doing some fantastic work. He absolutely is. I just wish we could clone him, because there's only so much that one man can put out. He does an extraordinary amount of work, but I wish there was another one. Maybe when Lucas comes on board. Question of the day. My most embarrassing moment was in 1966 whilst drinking with an old mate, the Two Sawyers in Chatham. After 2 hours and several pints, I asked why you were in sunglasses inside the pub. Because I'm blind, he replied. Oh, wow. Wow. Because I'm blind. That's a good one. That's going to take some topic. Maybe we'll revisit this one at some point. And our friend Wolf Welder says, impressive. Impressive in terms of longevity. Impressive in no other way whatsoever, but impressive in terms of longevity. And who knew? Who knew? I mean, literally, I'd come from a magazine where I was writing about hotels and restaurants. And I only joined Contract Journal because the new editor at that time was a mate of mine. And it just seemed like a good idea. You know, I'll follow my mate and we'll have a fine old time. And then I'll go and do something else. And here we are, 33, 34, possibly 35 years later. And it's now in my blood. Can't get away from it. Wouldn't want to anymore, to be honest. Right, people, go and have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for all your posts and comments. I'm going to pass on all your congratulations to my son Fred, and I'm just going to let you know, just in case, let's have a look. Yes, my channel is now at 91,177, so another 9,000 and I too may have a play button, and oh boy, you will never ever hear the last of that. But until then, everybody have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. All the very best.